Marvel Studios is a clever bunch. They always find the coolest ways to fit little cameos and Easter eggs into their films. Sometimes these moments are big and pronounced. Sometimes they're so small and brief, you wouldn't notice them unless you slowed the film down to examine them more closely. Here are some of the Marvel movie details you might have missed, unless you watch these moments
in slow motion.
Before I start any job, I need to know all the details.
Marvel Cinematic Universe fans the world over have been clamoring for a Howard the Duck movie since day one.
No more Mr. Nice Duck.
Okay, no they haven't, not really. We're just checking to make sure you're actually paying attention. But then again, a Howard the Duck film within the MCU would probably be a ton of fun. The guy gets a bad rep because of that horrendous Howard the Duck movie from 1986, which, believe it or not, had George Lucas on board as an executive producer. The character as portrayed in the comics could actually make for a legitimately enjoyable solo entry, should Marvel Studios ever decide to go in that direction. And we wouldn't be surprised if they do. After all, Howard the Duck had a fun cameo in the first Guardians of the Galaxy post-credits scene, but you might have missed his other cameo in Avengers Endgame. During the epic battle sequence at the film's climax, the character shows up just to the left of the Wasp when she arrives. It was a little bit of a nice little Easter egg that people would have to hunt out to a degree. That's according to visual effects supervisor Matt Aiken. He continued saying, "It wasn't long before somebody piped up and said, 'I saw him.'" AntMan is one of the MCU's most genuinely likable characters. For the most part, AntMan spent the majority of the MCU on the outside of the major happenings. When Captain America Civil War came around, he finally got his chance to meet up with the rest of the crew.
I'm shaking your hand too long. Wow, this is awesome. Captain America.
But really, it was Avengers Endgame where Scott Lang had the opportunity to play a major role in the unfolding events. After all, it was Scott who suggested that the Avengers use the quantum realm as a means to travel into the past in order to save the future. But in one of Endgame's most harrowing moments, it looked as if the beloved character might have bitten the dust. And no, not in the Thanos finger-snapping kind of way. We're talking about the dude getting totally blown up. Past Thanos manages to find his way to the Avengers' future and bombards their base with a massive assault. At first, it looks as if Scott, who is directly in the line of fire, has met his demise. But if you slow this explosion down, you'll notice that he actually manages to shrink right at the moment he's blown back from the window. This last-minute instinct ended up saving his life. If there's anything that bummed us out about the otherwise excellent Captain America the First Avenger, it's that we didn't get to spend more time with the Howling Commandos. To be fair, we did get some great moments with the crew, but we want more, Marvel. Perhaps a Disney Plus series to whet our appetites, huh? Come on, Marvel Studios. Bring Chris Evans back and give us the Captain America and the Howling Commandos movie we deserve. But despite the Howling Commandos' brief appearance in the MCU, turns out the team did get a great little callback in an unexpected place. The moment occurs in SpiderMan Homecoming, when Peter is sitting in Principal Morita's office. Slow things down and take a look at the framed photo on the cabinet in the background. This is none other than Jim Morita, one of Captain America's Howling Commandos. Clearly, Principal Morita is Jim's grandson. After all, they're practically identical, which makes sense, seeing as how both characters were portrayed by the same actor. Captain America Winter Soldier is still widely considered by many to be one of the best entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if not the best. But even though the Winter Soldier's action sequences are by far some of the MCU's greatest moments, we'd go so far as to argue that the film's smaller, character-driven beats are just as wonderful.
Don't you say it left. Come on!
How brilliant is that? And then the fact that they call back to it during Avengers Endgame's big battle still brings a tear to our eye.
On your left.
Sorry, back to the video. One of Winter Soldier's best and funniest moments comes at the start of the film. When Captain Rogers first meets Sam Wilson, Sam recommends Marvin Gaye's classic Trouble Man soundtrack album. Cap writes the recommendation down in his notebook, adding to a long list of recommendations, which includes the likes of Star Wars, Nirvana, and I Love Lucy. Want to know another fun fact? Depending on where the film was playing, this list changed. For instance, in the UK version, the list includes the Beatles and Sean Connery, and the South Korean list includes Dance Dance Revolution. Prior to the release of Avengers Age of Ultron, Marvel fans were certain that Hawkeye and Black Widow were something of a romantic item. When the characters were first introduced in the comic books, they were romantically involved. Writer-director Joss Whedon seemed to hint at this in the first Avengers film, suggesting a deeper relationship between the pair. However, nothing was explicitly stated. This particular Easter egg suggests that their relationship with one another may have originally been intended to be a romance. If you slow down certain scenes in Captain America Winter Soldier, you'll notice Black Widow is wearing a particular necklace. That necklace includes a tiny arrow on it. Could the filmmakers have been hinting at the romantic relationship between the characters? Chances are we'll never know for sure. By the time Age of Ultron rolled around, it became clear that Hawkeye was a devoted family man, and Natasha had a thing for brainiacs that turned into giant green rage monsters. One of the big plot points in Avengers Endgame involves Tony Stark's discovery of how to make time travel possible. Sadly, no flux capacitors were involved.
Flux capacitor?
The moment comes not too long after the Avengers pay a visit to Tony's new cabin in the woods, which is far more peaceful and relaxing than the term cabin in the woods would suggest. At first, Tony refuses to help his fellow Avengers out, but their conversation sticks with him. While he's doing dishes, Tony cleans off a photo of him and Peter Parker together. This little beat provides Tony with the push he needs to have his major time travel breakthrough, an inverted Mobius strip. But let's take a closer look at this moment. If you slow the scene down, take note of the diploma Tony and Peter are holding. Notice anything odd? It's upside down, inverted. Perhaps Tony noticed the inverted diploma, which then inspired him to try the inverted Mobius strip? Pretty cool, right?
Sure. Okay.
Now maybe it's just a coincidence, but now that so many fans and Redditors have pointed out this little detail, we're inclined to think that they might have been onto something here. Iron Man 2 is a film so overpopulated with characters and teases for future Marvel films, some would argue those things seem to have taken priority over actual storytelling. That being said, the second Iron Man film does have its worthwhile moments. That suitcase suit for one is absolutely fantastic, plus this is the first appearance of Black Widow, so that's exciting. There are a few more obvious Easter eggs, like the Captain America shield Tony uses to level his massive machine. One of the moments you might have missed takes place in this scene. Near the end of the film, Nick Fury explains why Tony is no longer fit for the Avengers initiative. You'll notice the holographic maps behind Tony's head. One of them showcases the location of Wakanda, an early tease for Black Panther's involvement in the MCU nearly a decade down the line. Fun fact, another one of the map's selected locations seems to be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, a nod to Atlantis, the home of Namor the Submariner, perhaps? Here's another amazing little detail we never noticed before. In SpiderMan Homecoming, when Aunt May is dropping Peter and Ned off at Liz Allen's party, take a look at the license plate. It reads AMF 1562. So what? Just a random assortment of letters and numbers like any old license plate, right? Of course not. This minor Easter egg is particularly clever and fun. We'll give you a brief second to see if you can figure it out. Yeah? No? Maybe? Okay, here it is. The AMF stands for Amazing Fantasy, which was the comic book in which the character of Spider-Man made his first appearance. The number 15 represents, you guessed it, the issue of Spidey's first appearance. The number 62 stands out for the year Spidey made his big debut. Now, don't lie. How many of you Spidey fans are rushing out to update your license plate with the same thing immediately? Something that you might not have realized is that Joe and Anthony Russo, the writers of Winter Soldier, Civil War, as well as Infinity War and Endgame, got their start in television. One of the shows they worked on most frequently was the classic comedy Arrested Development. And want to know something even more brilliant? The Russo brothers found a way to pay tribute to their time on the show in the Marvel films they directed. For instance, during Captain America Civil War's airport showdown, you might have noticed the iconic Bluth stair car in the background. It's a shame Michael Bluth and George Michael Bluth didn't show up to join the airport fight, but hey, you can't win them all. Another great Arrested Development callback was included in Avengers Infinity War. You'll notice that the infamous Tobias Funke is painted blue, sitting behind a glass case as Gamora passes by. Our final entry comes to us courtesy of AntMan, and it's absolutely fitting that this detail is just about as tiny as the film's title character. In fact, it's such a brief moment, it's no wonder it ended up cut from the final film. But that's the beauty of MCU's deleted scenes. Sometimes they offer up a treasure trove of great material and hints for future movies. This deleted scene showcases the film's big bad Darren Cross as he serves as a tour guide for some potential Pym particle buyers. You might notice that one of the buyers has a particular tattoo on his neck. Closer inspection reveals this is the 10 Rings logo, 10 Rings being the terrorist organization from the first Iron Man film that kidnapped Tony Stark. By extension, this is a reference to the character of the Mandarin, who yielded 10 rings of power in the comic books. And maybe, just maybe, those rings of power will make their way to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, once Amazon's new The Lord of the Rings series is done with them. And that's that, Screen Ranters. What say you? Had you noticed these little Easter eggs and moments in the film? Were there any that you had no idea existed? Were there any great ones that we missed? Let us know in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to our channel too. We'll see you next time.